This is Swim, Success with Music. Yo, what's going on, everybody? This is Swim, Success with Music. I am Walt. I'm your music coach. You're a bit rusty on the acoustic player. You're not ready for Callis Town Mayor. Yo, let's dive in. Yo, what's good, everybody? This is Walt. I appreciate you tuning into this podcast, which is Swim, Success with Music. This podcast is for musicians, singers, songwriters, beat makers, music students, you name it. We're about that music life, and wherever you happen to be in the world, I hope you're well. And thanks again for tuning in to Swim. So we are going to get into our main topic for today in just a moment. And if you weren't here last week, we were discussing the foundational concepts of music theory. And today we're going to keep moving in that direction, talking about some other aspects of music theory in just a moment. We're going to talk about major scales. But before we do that, I want to get into our first segment. So if you've been with us for a while, you know we get into the fun and interesting stuff at the top of the show. But today I'm going to switch it up. And the reason for that is I've been telling you for a few weeks now that we want to introduce you to music from our music community. So you listeners out there, people just like you, we want to hear your music. And today we're going to do just that. So remember, as you're listening to this track today, that we absolutely want to hear what you have. We can share with the community and get your music more exposure. And again, we got listeners from here in the U.S., of course. We got them over in Europe, in Japan, South America, South Africa. Man, they're all over the globe. So yeah, send your music in. We'll talk about how to do that at the end of the show. But for right now, let me give you just a few seconds of music from an artist named Cheyenne Rose. In this track, it's called These Are the Nights. Hey, check it out.
When the sun sets over the meadow, playing in the shadows. These are the nights we'll remember for the rest of our lives, being together, creating sweet scenes and memories.
I'll let you hear a bit more of that track at the end of the show. But again, that track was sent in from Cheyenne Rose. And again, the song is titled These Are the Nights. Now, Cheyenne is a talented vocalist, singer, songwriter who is now spending a bit of time in Nashville making that dream happen. All right, so we'll come back to more of her track at the end of the show and talk about you getting your music on the podcast as well. Hey, so let's pick up from last week. We were talking about music theory. And today I want to take the first step and get into major scales. Just a quick review about what we talked about last week. I defined music theory as laws, principles, and formulas for creating and performing music. One more time, and this is my definition, by the way, this is not textbook, but I try to frame these definitions in a way that helps those who have not been exposed to this. I'm trying to help you guys process what music theory is. All right. So again, laws, principles, and formulas for creating and performing music. All right. So as I mentioned, today I'd like to get into major scales. Now, knowledge of scales are foundational to practice exercises, chord construction, melodies, harmonies, creating songs, all of that. As stated before, my goal is to present music concepts in a way that's understandable, clear, and practical. I usually go about this by offering easy to understand analogies. So when I'm coaching musicians on this concept, I'd like them to see major scales as ingredients. You know, like ingredients you'll find in most kitchens: sugar, water, milk, flour. You get the point. When you're making various meals, you don't use every single ingredient in your kitchen, unless all you have is, ketchup and bread and you're rocking, ketchup sandwiches. See notes in a major scale as ingredients for a particular recipe. The individual notes in a major scale, they are ingredients for a very specific recipe, a specific scale. All right. So if you were going to, make a cake, it's conceivable that you may have ingredients like eggs, sugar, milk, flour, so on. In this particular example, you are not likely to use the triple volcano ghost pepper hot sauce. It doesn't match with creating a cake, right? The simple fact is there are things that belong in the cake and there are things that don't. Now, let's say in the case of C major scale, there are notes that belong in it and there are notes that do not. For instance, an A sharp, it does not belong in the scale or the key of C major. So for right now, just take what I'm saying at face value. I understand that we have not talked about what notes belong in which scale. For right now, just get the principle of what I'm saying. So let's go back to our cake example. When you wind up having some weird ingredient like that crazy hot sauce, one may see that as an accident. Well, in music, this is also true. We call these crazy instances accidentals. All right, so let me slow down just a bit because I am getting a bit ahead of myself here, but I am throwing out terms that you may have encountered before in music class or with your music teacher. I want to throw that in there to help you get your mind around the concept of scales and what belongs and what does not belong. But let's go backwards here and let's start to talk about what a major scale is. I can't go into accidentals and some other stuff without first defining what a major scale is. A major scale is a series of 7 notes that are played in succession. That's what a major scale is. A major scale is 7 specific notes that are being played in succession. Those 7 notes will give us the ingredients for building our major scale. We have to have all 7 of these notes in order to create our scale. Now, the individual notes in a major scale are assigned letters. These letters are from, of course, the alphabet, but not just any letter in the alphabet. In the music world, the 7 letters that we use, they are A, B, C, D, E, F, G. These are our ingredients. So each of the letters that I just mentioned, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, they all have corresponding scales. So in other words, if I were to pick out, let's say the letter F, F has a corresponding scale, F major scale. The F major scale has 7 notes in it. An A major scale, it also has 7 notes in it. So let's review this real fast here. Every single letter in the musical alphabet has a corresponding scale. So again, the letter A, there's an A major scale behind it. F, there's an F major scale behind it. When I say scale, remember, 7 notes. And we'll talk about those notes a bit later, but no matter what letter we choose, that letter has 7 corresponding notes. All right, let me go a little bit further this and show you how this all works. Let's choose another letter. Let's choose C. If I were to choose C, we would be creating a C major scale. Now, here's where the magic is. When you start with the letter C, C major scale, and then you would play D, that's note number 2. Then you would play E, that's note number 3. Then you would play F, that's note number 4. Then G, that's a number 5. But wait a minute. I told you just a moment ago that we only are allowed to go through G in terms of our musical alphabet. What happens when we get to the letter G in music? We simply start from the top again. So after the letter G, we go back to A, and then we keep going until we hit the letter C again. It's kind of like a loop. All right, let me go back, and I hope that I'm not losing you here. So let's start from the top here. We're dealing with a C major scale. All right, so the letters for the C major scale, they are C, D, E, F, G, just talked about what's going to happen, right? A, B, and after B, we're going to wind up at C. So once we get to C, we've basically completed that cycle. But the letter C repeats, so in theory, there are 7 letters in the major scale. The 8th repeats. All right, one more time. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. All right, so let me remind you of something that you may have heard someone singing before. You have that do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Have you heard of that before? Sorry, my singing is bad. But you have do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. That whole thing that you're hearing, if you ever heard someone sing that, that is a major scale. Now, those words in that major scale actually match up to the numbers in the major scale. Do is number 1, re 2, mi 3, and on and on and on. Now, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do that one more time for you. And I'm going to put an emphasis on one of the words here. Catch it. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Do at number 1. Do at the number 8 position, they're the same. That mirrors what we just did with the C major scale. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So number 1 and number 8, they match. The only difference between the number 1 and the number 8 note is that one is simply higher. But they're just 8 spaces away, and in music, we call that an octave. 8 octave. Think about the word octave, like an octagon, octopus. 8 spaces away, an octave. So this will be a good time to remind you about what we talked about in the previous episode. I talked about music theory being like a formula. I am starting to walk you through the major scale formula. Now, I haven't actually given you the specific details of this formula, but you can start to see the logic behind how the C major scale or any major scale is put together. The number 1 note and the number 8 note, they are the same. And you see that with the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do thing, because do and do, they are the same. The point is, this becomes a formula. So if you learn the formula, which we'll get to in our next episode, if you know that formula, you can figure out any major scale. All right, let me take this time to give you a quick pop quiz on what we've learned thus far. If you're new to this, I've actually given you quite a bit of information that went pretty fast, and we can recap that here in just a moment. But let me give you this pop quiz here. Earlier, I mentioned to you that we use 7 letters in the musical alphabet, and each of those letters has a corresponding major scale, like A, B, C, that type of thing. Or there's 7 notes strung together, starting with each of the letter names that I just called out. So, having said that, how many major scales are there? That's your pop quiz. How many major scales exist out there in music land? I'll give you this. I'll make this multiple choice. Is it 7? Or is it 8? Or is it 12? All right. What is your answer? Now, I just told you we use 7 letters from the alphabet for our musical alphabet, right? And I'm purposely trying to trick you here. Did you choose 7? Did you choose 7 scales to correspond with the 7 letters of the alphabet that we use? If you chose that for your answer, you are so wrong, and I'm so wrong for leading you down that wrong path, but hey, I'm trying to teach you something here. The answer is actually 12. Here's the thing. I only gave you 7 letters to work with, right? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And so for each of those letters, there are corresponding notes, 7 of them, right? So if that is the case, how is it that I come up with 12 major scales that exist out there? Well, between certain letters, like between C and D, and between D and E, and between F and G. And between G and A, and also